Welcome everyone to the US Web Design System monthly call for March of 2024. This month we're celebrating Women's History Month with shades of orange, teal, purple, and pink, as well as the first day of spring, the vernal equinox, which was on Tuesday, with shades of pink like a cherry blossom. Slide 2. My name is Dan Williams, he, him, and I am the USWDS project lead. And here on screen is my avatar: dark hair, blue sweater, collared shirt. Today, my physical self is wearing a black and white checked flannel shirt, and I'm fortunate enough to have a little bit of natural light in my room today. As Jeannie mentioned, we are recording this call, and I'm happy to say we've started to be able to share the recordings of these monthly calls publicly. You can find pretty much everything from the last year's worth of monthly calls back to January 2023 on our website at designsystem.digital.gov/about/monthly-calls. We typically post videos shortly after the monthly call, and we also link out to the slides and the script hosted at digital.gov. We've posted a link to our monthly call page in the chat. We'll be posting other links and references in the chat as we go along, and I encourage you to ask questions in the chat at any time. If a member of our team can answer your question in the chat, we'll do so. Otherwise, there'll be some time for questions and answers at the end of the hour. Also, be sure to introduce yourself in the chat as well. It's nice to know who's here, and it's good to have you here today. For those of you who find the chat distracting, you're welcome to close or hide the chat window during the main presentation. You can reopen it later during the Q&A session at the end of the call. So thanks. And with that, let's do it. Let's get started with slide 3. So what's our agenda for today? Well, we've got a very relevant new site launch and a few good product updates. And then we'll spend the rest of the time talking about building with USWDS, running through a tutorial and a bit of a demo. And then we'll end the call with some Q&A. So let's get into it. Slide 4 with new site launches. Slide 5. So this month, we're featuring directfile.irs.gov, the direct file pilot from the Internal Revenue Service. Direct file is a new tax tool to file your federal taxes for free directly with the IRS, supporting tax filers in 12 states. The direct file homepage features a simple blue and white layout with the Gov banner at the top of the page, an informational site alert that says the direct file pilot is currently open to new participants. The Hero section has an embedded video explaining the pilot and the words, "Join the IRS Direct File Pilot." Slide 6. So this is a great site to highlight in March, and great work. Be sure to let our team know when a new site launches, either with an email or a note on the USWDS public Slack channel. Slide 7. So now for a few quick product updates. Slide 8. First, USWDS 3.8.0. We've mentioned it in the last couple monthly calls, and it's finally out now. I won't go into the details of 3.8.0 since we've discussed it so much recently, but check out the release notes for lots of details. We're pasting the direct link in the chat. It's with all our other releases and release notes at github.com/USWDS/USWDS/releases. So check it out. Slide 9. Next, new component discussions. We spent last month talking about our new component discussions, proposals, and the component lifecycle model. Well, we now have 10 active component discussions on our discussion board. Components like common feedback, a CUI banner, glossary, spinner, tabs, toast, toggle, quote with attribution, skip to, and sidebar primary navigation. If you're interested in any of these components and would like to be part of the discussion that helps make the case for the component, head over to our discussion board at github.com/USWDS/USWDS/discussions, and then go to component proposals. We hope you get involved. Slide 10. We've also published 3 new accessibility test pages, icon, table, and typography. We'll post direct links. We can post some direct links in the chat. I may have forgotten to put those into the chat, so we might not have them. But you can get to any new accessibility test page by visiting the components page on our website and selecting accessibility tests in the side navigation. So we've got new accessibility tests out now for icon, table, and typography. And the next ones that are coming up within the next few weeks will be character count, prose, tag, and tooltip. So accessibility tests keep rolling along. So we'll keep you up to date every month on our progress with those accessibility tests. Slide 11. And finally, so getting your feedback is critical for us to be able to deliver a design system that works for you. To that end, we've created a new web page and a sign-up form for federal employees who might like to participate in usability research with us. You can find this new information on our website at designsystem.digital.gov/about/research/recruitment/general-fed. And of course, there is a link in the chat. You don't have to remember all of that. We are looking for federal employees who serve as designers, developers, content strategists, accessibility specialists, UX leaders, or in any UX, CX adjacent role that have any level of experience or proficiency with the design system, from being a total beginner to a seasoned expert. So feel free to go to that new webpage to learn more about our research program and what to expect, and sign up if you're interested. Also, feel free to email us at uswds@gsa.gov with any questions that you might have. Slide 12. So now let's get into our main event, which is building with USWDS. So today we're going to have a demo of theming, styling, and extending USWDS components. How to build on the components that USWDS delivers to deliver new things that we don't yet deliver. While doing so, we'll take a look at how we think about building and designing with the design system, how we use tokens and other techniques to build new work that feels of a piece with the design system, and not just how it looks, but in the code itself. Slide 13. And to help do this, I'd like to introduce 2 of my colleagues. First, James Mejia, contractor and a front-end engineer on the USWDS core team. James, can you come on camera, introduce yourself, and give a brief self-description?
Hey there, everyone. My name is James Mejia. Like Dan said, I'm a contracted engineer, and I'm wearing a brown jacket for this chilly weather, and I have short, dark hair.
Cool. Thanks, James. Slide 14. And I'd also like to introduce Charlie Mahoney, contractor and a front-end engineer on the USWDS core team, like James. Charlie, can you introduce yourself and give a brief self-description?
Of course. Hey there, I'm Charlie Mahoney. My pronouns are he, him. I'm wearing a burgundy sweater and I have dark, slightly longer hair. Also a USWDS contractor.
Cool. Thank you, Charlie. Slide 15. So before I pass it over to James and Charlie, I'd just like to call out a couple things that we'll be covering in the demo that they'll be doing. So we're going to be looking at USWDS tokens. We're going to be looking at theme settings, functions and mix-ins, overrides, and style sheet customization. We're looking at color contrast and a little bit at the structure of style sheets and organizing your files. So to that end, I will throw it over to James and Charlie to help go through this demo. And with that, it's slide 16, the big purple word demo. And with that, James can take over and go from there.
Thanks,
All
Dan.
right. Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. So, like Dan said, this is a new part of our tutorial we offer on our GitHub under USWDS tutorial. If you completed part 1, it teaches you how to get started with the design system, installing it, and setting up compile, as well as creating what we like to call the USWDS sandwich and adding components to the project. In this second part, we're going to take a look at theming, customizing, and extending the design system. We'll use theme settings to do broad, wide sweeping changes to the design system, add some custom styles to advance that and customize the components further than theme settings offer. And lastly, we'll create a custom component and use everything USWDS has to offer to really make it our own. How's that sound, James?
That sounds fantastic, Charlie. I'm excited to get started. I will be driving the code and browser. So looking forward to your help in doing all these exercises.
Absolutely. All right, what do you say we dive right in? Do you want to scroll down to the first section, theming with USWDS components?
Okay, I'm in part 1.
So what you're looking at here on screen is you'll see on the left side, we'll have instructions available to you that you'll follow step by step to get started. And on the right, we have our card component, and this is our standard variant card component, right as you'd see on the component page. And if you were to copy and paste the markup to your project, this is exactly how it would appear. Yeah, you want to take a look at that component page?
Of course, I have it right here. This is the USWDS card component page. And at the top, we see a little bit about the card component. You see the different preview for the variants. Right underneath that, we have the component code that you can copy into your project or your tutorial as you follow along. We also see guidance about when to use or when to not use the card component, as well as usability, accessibility, and other guidance for using the card component. So if I scroll a little bit further down, I think I see the section that you mentioned earlier about card settings.
That's right. And all these settings are just things that are available to you to make, like I said, broad sweeping changes to all of the cards throughout your project. It'll give you the variable name and then a short description of what the theme setting accomplishes.
Okay, so changing these makes changes to all my cards.
That's right. If you have any cards throughout your project, it will affect them all, effectively letting you customize them without having to go through and write a bunch of meticulous custom styles.
Hey, that sounds pretty good to me.
I like it. Let's do it. So if you hop back over to that demo page, you'll see a couple styles that we have selected to update. If you want to go ahead and give those a copy, and then we can jump over into our editor and look at the USWDS theme file.
Sure. You said USWDS theme?
That's right. So this file is where we will add all of our theme settings. What you're seeing here now is some theme settings that are set during the first part of the tutorial. It's important, I would recommend completing this first step so you're ready for part 2. So if you're joining us and jumping along, just make sure you complete those first steps as well.
Oh, I remember these. These made some changes to the typeface and the banner, right?
That's right.
Okay, so I pasted in my new settings.
Yeah.
And I think I recognize 2 of them because they're related to card. What about this border radius large?
So this border radius large allows us to update the sizing token for the large that we will be using in theme card border radius. It's a little bit larger than the standard large token, and this will allow us to have a slightly more curved card radius.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to swap over to the preview just to see what it looks like before. And then I'll jump back to the code, give that a save, and then see what changed. Hey, it got rounder.
Look at that. I like it. It's very modern looking.
Fluffy.
And it's important to note James is running our compile watch command, which allows the system to recompile on saves, and that's how he was able to make this change so quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what's next?
let's keep it going. We have a couple other settings if you want to scroll down for us. Why don't we go ahead and update the typeset for our card header? Currently, it's using a serif font and is a good size, but I'm interested in making it a little bit bigger.
Interesting. So this setting is not like the other settings. It has 3 different types of changes, customizations.
Yeah, let's go through each of them real quickly. We have the
Okay.
sans font. This is updating from the serif to the sans. And if you look at the top of this theme setting page, we can see that we're actually updating the sans font to public sans.
Oh, that's right. I see it right here on line 12.
That's right. And then we're going in and setting the font size to extra large. So it'll bump up that font size for us.
Okay.
And lastly, we have a line height token, which is setting the line height to a little bit of a tighter line height.
Okay, so I've saved that, and I'll go back to my browser and hit refresh just to see that change. Oh, there we go.
Look
It
at
got a little
that.
bigger.
I like it.
How did you know about these settings and what it takes? How can I find that out?
Yeah. So on the Design System website, we have a documentation page which features a large settings table. If you want to open that up for our audience here.
Okay. There we go.
So you can see here, these are specific to the card component, but on this page, you'll find all of our system settings, as well as all of the component settings. You'll see the name of the token, the variable name, as well as some defaults and descriptions. And to answer your question, you can see the type, where we can see that for theme card header typeset, you'll see family, size, and line height are the types of tokens that it takes.
But yeah, I remember these settings. So here's the one that we just changed and the one that I asked you about, right? And
That's
there's
right.
edit large and 2. And these little tags are the ones that you just mentioned where I can find what values they accept.
Absolutely. And you can actually click each of those tags and it will take you to another page with more information on the tokens available to you and how to use them.
Okay, so I've clicked on size and I'm on the font size design token page. And I see the extra large stat we entered. So it'll be about 32 pixels or 32 pixels once rendered.
That's right.
Sounds good to me. Should I jump back to the demo?
Yeah, let's go take another look at that. And it's looking pretty good. I think let's add a little bit more padding settings to give our card a little bit of room to breathe.
Okay. And I'll do that by copying this setting that says card padding perimeter 4, right?
Absolutely.
So I'll add that here and save.
That is save. Yeah. Let's let it recompile and then let's go back to the demo and see what that looks like.
A little bit more breathing room.
Absolutely. It's looking pretty good. Let's finish up this section by customizing some of our primary color settings. These are some system-wide settings that will let you update our primary color token. You can see on the card component, it is using a blue button, and that is set to primary currently. So let's try and updating it to a nice indigo color.
Okay. And I assume you got these from the settings page as well?
That is right.
All right, well then I've copied and we'll paste.
Absolutely. And then so one of the benefits here is using these tokens, it allows you to use more semantic language when adding these colors or discussing with designers. Instead of saying, hey, let's make this card button indigo 60V, you can say, hey, let's let the card button use our primary color. And you can use this to set the primary to whatever styling needs your brand needs.
That's pretty convenient. It's definitely a lot easier to remember primary than indigo 60V.
I agree.
Okay,
right,
so I saved it.
Yeah, let's check it out and see what it looks like.
Oh, look at that.
It's nice, right? And because we set not just primary, but dark and darker and lighter ones as well, it'll set any styles that use those tokens. So you can see he is hovering over the button and it is taking that primary dark token.
Oh yeah, you're right. So it took care of all of this for me without me having to write custom styles.
That's right. Pretty convenient. Hey, Jinx. All right, so we've experienced playing with a couple of the theme settings, but what if you want to take this a little bit further? What if there are some customizations you want to make that are not available with theme settings? Well, luckily, you're not out of luck when it comes to USWDS. What do you say we move on to adding some custom styles, James?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So I'll scroll down to part 2, customizing card using custom styles.
That's right. So the first step of adding our custom styles is going to be to add a custom class to the markup so that we don't have the styles step on each other's toes and there's no specificity conflicts here.
Okay, like the sound of that.
Yeah, so if you want to, let's jump back over into your editor and we have a card.html file that is housing all of our component markup at this time.
Okay, I found card HTML. And
And
it looks like the standard markup in the code example on the website.
exactly. This is exactly what you would copy and paste over if you were getting started with USWDS. So we have this outer div with a USA card class. It is standard naming convention. We like to prefix our classes with a 2 to 3 letter prefix to identify the organization that it belongs to. So USWDS uses USA for all of our components. For the sake of this tutorial, why don't we use my? We'll call it my card.
That sounds good to me. So you said I wouldn't want to use USA card to add my custom styles?
Yeah, that's right. It could just lead into specificity issues down the road, unintended changes. And, if we make an update to what the USA card styles are, it might wipe out your custom styles and you wouldn't want that.
Oh, no, not at all. That sounds pretty bad.
That's right. And in a similar fashion, we're also going to want to make sure that we isolate all of our styles and keep things organized. So why don't we create a new file to have all of our SCSS styles?
Okay. How do I do that? I've opened up my terminal.
You open up your terminal, that's right. And then since James is opening up a terminal within VS Code, it is already at his project directory. If you open up one outside of this, you might have to change directories to get to your project path. But since we're here, we can go ahead and make run the make directory command, and we're going to add a components directory to our theme directory.
Okay. Looks like that worked.
All right. So now that we have that directory, we'll go ahead and create a new file within that directory. It'll be a CSS partial for our card component.
Okay, so how do I create this SAS partial?
So I would run touch, and then we're going to do the path that we just mentioned.
Okay.
Theme components, and we'll name it my card. And since it's a SCSS partial, we'll prefix it with an underscore.
Sounds good. That looks like it worked.
All righty. Now, before we get to styling, we want to make sure that USWDS knows to include these styles in its compilation. So if you can navigate to USWDS theme custom styles, here is where you can see we are importing our project styles, and we're going to go ahead and forward over this new style sheet so it doesn't get left out when we compile our USWDS CSS.
Okay.
Perfect. All righty. So now that we've completed this, you can go ahead and close out of that file.
All right.
And why don't we go into our new card partial file and get styling?
All right, let's do it. What do I need to do first?
So if we want to make use of a lot of the tools that USWDS has to offer, we're going to want to import the USWDS core package. So if you go back to your demo and scroll down to the instructions, you'll see exactly how you can do that. So at the top of the file,
core in step 5, right?
That's right. If you want to give that a copy and go back to our editor, we can paste it at the top using the SAS use directive.
Okay.
And we're using it as star, the all selector. This allows us to use these with their name given to them by USWDS without having to prefix it with USWDS core.color, for example. You can just call the color function using color.
That's convenient. What's next?
All right, let's hop back over to the demo and you'll see a couple styles that we're gonna grab. This first one is going to target our custom class selector, and then the class that we want to override the styles. So it'll be my card, USA card container.
All right. We're going to override the background of the card container, right?
That's right.
Because we didn't have a setting that was available to us.
That's right. And we don't want you to be limited by just what the settings offer.
Okay, so I pasted it in and hit save.
And we're using the color function, which is built to use our USWDS color tokens. If you were just to set background color and then use it, it might not know what exactly that yellow token was, but thankfully the color function allows you to use these tokens throughout your project.
All right, that's what the use USWDS core did.
That's right.
Okay, so I'll refresh. And I see my card update. Looks pretty good.
I like it. Nice soft yellow, just in time for spring.
Yeah, that's true. How can we continue to customize this?
Well, lucky for you, we've picked out a couple other settings that we would like to show off. So why don't you go ahead and copy that next group of settings here. We're going to update the margin using some units, and we're going to use the font weight using a font weight token.
Okay.
So in each of these, we're doing just like we did above, targeting our custom class and then the classes of the styles that we want to override using the respective function with the tokens that they absorb.
All right, I see those USWDS functions that you mentioned. And I'll jump back to the demo and refresh. And it's looking better.
I like it. Bump down the boldness just a little bit and increase that margin. I think it's looking pretty good. What do you think?
I'd say so.
So at this point, we've now talked about theming, making broad sweeping changes with the theme settings, and writing custom styles to get a little bit more specific and add an advanced level of customization to the components on your page. Pretty neat.
Yeah, this is awesome. And I didn't have to write too many custom styles.
No. So now let's take a look at, well, what if you want to take this further, use everything that we've gone through so far and maybe create our own component. Maybe card is close to what you want for your project, but you need something a little bit more specialized and specific. So in this section, we're going to take the principles learned so far using card and create a custom testimonial component to show off a quote.
Sounds good to me. I like specialized.
Yeah. So to get started with the custom component, let's first get started creating the skeleton of what the markup will look like.
Okay.
If you want to go ahead and copy that markup, we have an empty testimonial HTML page that you can pull up in the editor and get started.
Oh, I found it. And just like you said, it's empty.
That's right. And if you were to compare this to, let's say, the card component, you'll see a pretty similar structure. We have our opening divs, and then we have on our testimonial side of things, we have a body and a footer, and it kind of follows this outline set for us by card and just fits it a little bit more towards our needs.
Yeah, you're right. It looks like the card skeleton.
Yeah. So why don't you say we get started adding some things to our card and actually fleshing out the component?
That sounds great. Let's do it.
All righty. Back on the demo page, we have some text for you to use as the actual quote.
Okay. It's kind of a core requirement of the testimonial, huh?
Yeah, I'd say so. And it's like it took the words right out of your mouth. All righty.
That's true.
Next, let's go ahead and let's populate the footer section. We have a little image for a profile photo for our quotee, as well as a profile section to give them a name and a title.
All right, Mr. J, fake name.
Yeah. And before we look at what that looks like, why don't we add just a little more visual flair? Can you go to the icon component page and let's see if there's any icons we can use to help spice this component up.
Yeah, I sure can. Okay, so I'm on the icon page.
That's right. And you'll see on the icon page all the things that we talked about that would be found on any component page for USWDS, and some guidance and some accessibility guidance and everything like that. And you'll also find this beautiful preview where you can actually search to see what icons are available to you. So let's start, maybe type quote and see if there's anything we could use. Check that out.
So how do I get this code?
Well, you can actually see that it is a button. If you go ahead and click that, it'll copy the code right to your clipboard.
There we go. It's convenient. So I'll go back to my editor. And where do I need to paste this?
Let's paste it right beneath the opening My Testimonial div, right at the top there. And since we're going to want to style this in the future, let's add a My Testimonial icon class to our SVG.
Okay.
And why don't we go ahead and add some height and width attributes to add some semantic sizing to this?
Sure. I'll get that from the code example. All right. How's it look?
It looks pretty good to me. Why don't we see what it looks like on the demo page?
I've been wanting to refresh.
All right.
My testimonial is looking a little off.
Oh, I thought it looked great.
If you squint your eyes.
So we'll see. Of course, right now it is just the markup, but it does look like we are missing something. We don't see that quotation icon that we grabbed before. People who are returning to this tutorial from the beginning might remember that you must always check your assets to make sure that they fit your project needs. What is on the component pages might not be a one-for-one match to the structure of your project. And here you can see by default, it's going to assets, image, and sprite. But with our project, we are assets and then a USWDS directory.
Oh,
So why don't we go ahead and update that?
You said assets and then USWDS because this is our custom project path.
That's right.
Okay, so I've updated that and saved. And I should be able to refresh. And there we go.
Nice. All right. We have the bones of our custom components. Why don't we repeat some of the steps that we outlined above and create a custom style sheet partial to start styling this thing?
Okay. So I'll open up my terminal and help me out with a command.
Yeah. So we're going to run the touch command and we're going to go to theme components and we'll call this one my testimonial.scss.
Okay.
Beautiful. And then always remember, we're going to want to add this to our theme custom styles so that it gets compiled with USWDS styles.
Oh, that's true. Because I could be styling and not see anything.
It's always important to check this if you're adding your styles and you're not seeing anything. Pro tip, might be missing the forward here.
Okay. So my forward is set. What's next?
All right. So to get things started, we have provided some base styles to just get the ball rolling on the testimonial. If you want to jump over to the demo, you can copy and paste that in. And you'll see here, we are doing just like we did before. We are importing the USWDS core package. And we are setting some CSS properties using some of our tokens. So you'll see things like the unit function or the color function. On your own time while you're completing this, go through and see if you can catch all the places that we are using the tokens.
I see. So in my custom testimonial style sheet, I see a USWDS core like we said before, so I can have access to these color functions and units.
Precisely. All right. What do you say we get into specializing this thing a little bit, making it the best code it can be?
Do you mind if I take a peek first at what it looks like?
Absolutely.
Hey, looks good.
Looking pretty good, right? I'm liking the soft purple.
Yeah, I'd say so. Are we done?
Okay. Oh, no, we got a little bit more. We have some more fun in store for you.
We're going to make this better?
Yeah,
Awesome.
Absolutely. Let's follow some of the USWDS core tenets to make this very readable and very reusable.
Okay.
So you'll see the fill and stroke are both using color indigo 30. And if you wanted to update one, that means you would probably want to update the other. So to reduce some redundancy, why don't we store that as a variable and then update those definitions so that you only have to change it once if you ever choose to change that color icon.
Oh, that's smart. Okay, so I've created the variable and I'm going to replace the previous fill and stroke with the
That's
variable.
right.
There we go. So now I can update it once and have both populated.
That's right. So we were using that color before. Let's go ahead and give it a refresh and make sure that that color didn't disappear. Looks the same. And I think that's a success for us then.
Okay, so far so good.
All right. Now let's use some mix-ins to show a little bit more powerful customizations that can help reduce additional redundancy, as well as use some of those same theme settings that we customized earlier on in the tutorial.
Okay, time to save those precious lines of code, huh?
That's right.
All right, so I'll copy over these includes that are highlighted and add them to, where do I need to add them to?
This is going to go right into the My Testimonial class, right up there at the top.
I see.
And if we take a look at these, first thing we'll take a look at is what some of these are replacing. So we have U margin X. This is a cool tool that lets you set the margin along a X axis, so the left and the right. Instead of having to define them both, you can just go ahead and define the one and it'll keep them nice and uniform.
Hey, that's convenient. So I can delete these.
That's right. And then you'll see we're also adding a utility mix-in for some padding. And using this mix-in, we're able to actually absorb some of the theme settings that we used at the beginning. So that theme card padding parameter that we set earlier, we can actually use that and add some uniformity between our card component and our new testimony.
I see.
Okay.
I'm using card settings so that it's like card, but not exactly card.
Exactly. There's another way that you can use the theme settings available to you to, again, create more wide sweeping changes. If one day you decide that all your cards, including the testimonial, need to change maybe the border radius or something like that, you'll be able to keep it all uniform.
Yeah, I can just take what I need. So I've gotten rid of the padding setting that I set previously, and I'm using the mix-in now. So I hit save, and I really want to peek and see what it looks like now.
I think we should. I think we should.
Okay. Oh, look at that.
Looks good. Looks
Yeah,
just like the
great
card
so far.
component above it.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. So now let's play with some of the colors.
Okay.
So go ahead and let's copy those. We're going to change the background color and the color. And similar to what we were talking about in the theme setting, and we're going to use these token names. So we don't have to worry about indigo 10. We're simply going to change the color, the text color to primary light and the background color to primary dark and keep things on brand with this tutorial.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing we talked about, where it's easier to remember primary over indigo 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's give that a save and check it out.
Ooh, this looks nice.
It looks nice. And the large font looks okay, but that smaller font, it's getting a little bit harder to read. Those colors may be a little bit too close.
Yeah, a little too faint for these old eyes.
Yeah. So
So
James
let
is
me inspect
inspecting
it.
the color here. Yeah. What does that say?
It says it does not meet WCAG standards for accessible text.
That's unfortunate. And you know, we have a grading system here at USWDS, and we always want to code with accessibility in mind. And you can use this grading system. We saw things like indigo 10, indigo 70, and we can assure that a difference or a magic number of 50 plus will ensure AA across any two color values.
Oh, I
And
think I've seen this on the color tokens page on the website. Right here, magic number.
That's right.
Okay, so I'll swap back to, let's see.
Well, so like we said before, a difference of 50 will get you the AA requirement, but that's kind of hard to see now that we've abstracted away to this primary, right?
Oh, yeah.
But luckily, we have tools to help you with that. So why don't you copy that set text and background, and we'll learn how to set the background and text color as well as check for contrast on the fly.
Okay, so I'll replace the styles that I just pasted, and I'll replace that with set text and background. And you said this way I don't have to worry about what grading it is?
Right. So this will help us by not only setting the text and background at the same time, but comparing them for us. Would you mind opening your terminal so we can see the compilation process?
No, I don't mind at all. So let me clear my terminal and hit save again. And it looks like a warning popped up on the right-hand side.
That's right. And if we read that warning, it says that neither the specified prefer color token for the text primary light or the fallback ink have AA color contrast against primary dark. So this is checking the color that we set, as well as a fallback of the default text color, and saying that neither of them have correct color contrast, and wants to warn you so that you can continue the testing and maybe find a color that is assured to have correct color contrast.
Okay, so in this case, it tried to help me out, but it couldn't, so it gave me a warning.
That's right. USWDS does everything we can to keep accessibility in mind, but once you start making customizations, there's only so much that we can do on our side. So we want to make sure to provide warnings when these customizations might start breaking things.
Okay, so how do I fix it?
Well, why don't we use one of the other tokens that we set and change it to primary lighter and see if that does anything for us.
Okay. I was going to hide my terminal, but I wanted to check to see if the error was gone, and it looks like it's gone.
I think so. Why don't we go and take a look at our brand new component, see how it's looking.
Oh, that's much better.
I think so. And just like that, James, you've learned about setting wide sweeping theme settings and changing all the instances of a card all at once without writing custom styles, advancing that to writing custom styles and adding a little bit more personalization that beyond what theme settings offer, and then taking everything USWDS has to offer, including mix-ins and functions and tokens, to create your own component. And it's looking pretty good.
I'd say so. Look at how beautiful that is.
I like it. What do you think, Dan? How do you like our new component?
Thanks, Charlie. This is Dan, and I really do think that this is one of the best USWDS tutorials I've followed all the way to the end. Yeah, so this is all part of a USWDS tutorial, a repo that we posted a link to in the chat, and we'll call back again later. Like James and Charlie mentioned sort of part one of the tutorial. And this is something we did about a year ago when we looked at part one. And part one is really about like getting up to speed with the design system, installing it into a project and beginning to connect it to your project's existing styles. So you can add USWDS incrementally into a project. And then as you follow along into part two, this part that we just looked at today is like, okay, what if we want to begin to build more stuff with USWDS and begin to develop a higher level of integration between the design system and our project? So when you go and you visit that tutorial and you try to do it yourself, you'll start from the very beginning and go all the way from nothing to building your own simple USWDS components. Now I'm going to share my screen and pop back over to the slides. And yeah, just a couple things. Thank you again, James and Charlie, for going through all of that stuff. There's a lot of stuff sort of enclosed in that tutorial. And it really, if you're interested, it does make sense to just go and do it yourself to get a sense of doing it and what we're actually talking about here. But when we're building with USWDS, there are a few things I think we want to keep in mind. First, that we want to use USWDS tokens whenever possible, when we're setting colors, when we're setting font sizes, when we're setting spacing units. Use those tokens, use those palettes to build your new stuff. That's sort of like the fundamental and like lowest level way that we can begin to connect to all of our sites together by using the same palettes. And get familiar with settings. Like there's a lot of power in settings, and there's a lot that you can begin to do in your project to tailor it to what your project needs without even modifying a lot of CSS. Just with a few settings, you can do some meaningful things. It's important to override our USWDS SAS, our style sheets, with project classes, just like we made my card, that sort of allows us to move our overrides into a sort of separate section. So it doesn't risk getting clobbered by updating USWDS, helps with specificity, keeps everything organized and separated. and that you can build with existing components. That when we were looking at developing our testimonial component, there were things that we could take from card. We can use buttons and other things. We can use the grid. We can, when we're building new things, how can we use some of the existing design system components to give ourselves a starting point for something new? And really just to experiment with confidence that the design system really is meant to be building new things and to be really trying to engage with your audience and to keep pushing. There are some things we like to do consistently, again and again, using USWDS tokens, using the banner, using some common components, but there is room for experimentation, and you should experiment with confidence with the design system. Slide 18. So really, I think I mentioned it before, but try it for yourself. We've published this tutorial to this GitHub repo, which is github.com/USWDS/USWDS tutorial. If you have enough familiarity and have enough permissions on your computer to be able to clone a repo and start doing some commands, you have everything you need to get started with this tutorial. And this tutorial will get you just familiar with USWDS concepts from the very beginning and bring you all the way into understanding how to build new stuff with the design system.